The royal family has been interested in UFOs for decades. This was always a matter of extreme sensitivity.
Documents going way back to the 50s.
The Queen sent scientific advisors to crop circles. They know more about it. They want to find out more.
The following is a conversation with Mark Christopher Lee. We spoke to Mark early in the year about his film Encounters of the Fifth Kind. Today, Tom and I talked to Mark about his latest film, King of UFOs, a documentary film covering the British royal connection to UFOs. Mark is a musician and filmmaker, known as a singer and composer for the indie band The Pocket Gods since 1998, setting up his own digital label in 2005 and later working on production and TV and film. He also holds a number of Guinness World Records. Mark recently filmed King of UFOs, which is available on Prime Video. A fascinating man with a rich history in UFO, UAP. It's always a pleasure talking to Mark, and I really look forward to sharing this conversation with you guys. So, the following is a conversation with Mark Christopher Lee. Mark, thanks so much for joining us again. Really do appreciate your time. I think the last time we spoke, you just had, I think it was UFO Encounters of the Fifth Kind out.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So how have things been? I mean, you've clearly been busy.
I'm always busy, yeah. But yeah, I guess music used to be my main kind of passion, and that's now films now. Well, films about UFOs, because that's my big passion really. So yeah, it's been exciting journey which I'm on, and the King of UFOs is out and it's doing fairly well, which is good. And I've just finished our new film about Rendlesham, which I'm happy to talk about, which will be coming out in December, hopefully.
Awesome. Okay, well let's jump into King of UFOs then. So sort of talk us through the idea, like what inspired you to go after that particular sort of side of it, the royal family, the British royal family. Where did that come in?
Well, basically, I knew there was a little bit about Prince Philip being into UFOs, but I didn't realize to what extent until I visited this great the Great British UFO Archive in Stratford upon Avon, and it's run by retired CID police officer John Hanson. And it's a fascinating place. Everyone should go there. It's into UFOs, UAPs, whatever. It's an amazing place, and it's got tens of thousands of documented sightings. He's got physical evidence of people who've had abduction experiences. He's got videos, all sorts. But amongst all this treasure trove of UAP, knowledge and information, he's got these letters that he received from Prince Philip and the Queen. There's quite a few of them as well, and he used to send books to them, his latest books and things like that. And they used to say, "Oh, thank you. We've added them to our own collection of UFO and paranormal books." So it's like, whoa, that's cool. And there was quite a lot of letters, going back and forth, and I didn't realise that there was such a passion by the Queen and Prince Philip, and especially with crop circles as well. And then John was telling me various other stories about how Queen Elizabeth was into crop circles and nearly came down one night to Wiltshire to look at one that's just been made. But she didn't come, but it was her chief scientific officer she had sent. So this gave me an idea. I think, this would make for a really good, interesting film. So that's how it came about. And I was also lucky enough to I pitched this idea. I just had the meeting with John at his archive and had this idea. And then it was the Raindance Film Festival in London, which I went to. And there was a pitching competition, and I hadn't put my name down, film pitching competition. And I thought, I'm going to get up and do it. So put my name down. I think I was the last one up. And I just pitched, didn't have any notes or anything like that. But everyone thought, wow, that's an amazing idea. Well, really? So yeah, I won the competition.
Wow.
And on the back of that, Raindance themselves funded this film.
Awesome.
So I'm very, very grateful.
Wow, how strange. What a weird turn of events.
It is weird, yeah.
Yeah.
But it's very kind of one of those kind of seize the moment kind of things.
Yeah.
Which is what I did. And it's like, now the film's out and Raindance are very happy. And yeah, it's just been a very pleasant experience.
Have you got any thoughts as to why if the royals are so interested, why is there this sort of difference between what the MOD will talk about?
Yeah, that's a really good question because yeah, we did look at that and obviously spoke to Nick Pope about it. Yeah, I mean they had to keep it secret basically because yeah, the royals, like you say, they were taking it seriously, but the MOD is like, oh, there's nothing there, there's nothing to be seen, and it's not of interest and no defense significance. So if the Queen and Prince Philip at the time were to go public with that, that would just cause political embarrassment, and Prince Philip, the Duke of Edinburgh, was well known for his gaffes. So I'm surprised he didn't. And in fact, we found out that he nearly had a massive gaffe back in the 50s when there was his equerry is called Sir Peter Horsley. Basically, his private secretary was looking after him. And Prince Philip used to use Sir Peter Horsley to find out about UFOs, really. He would subscribe to Flying Saucer Review, get the latest details on the latest sightings. And anyway, Sir Peter Horsley started meeting this character called Janus in a flat in, I think it's in Chelsea. And Sir Peter Horsley says, oh, this Janus is like got this otherworldly quality and can read his mind and thinking he's an alien or something. And anyway, this Janus really wanted to meet Prince Philip because Prince Philip, he said, was, a man of very keen intellect and could help save the world and all this. And so Horsley was trying to set up this meeting with Janus and Prince Philip. I mean, quite luckily, it didn't happen because it probably was a Russian spy, and the Russians found a way in. About Prince Philip's, UFO interests. We can, find a way in to get some secrets. So he didn't turn up. But Sir Peter Horsley, it's all in his autobiography. Still to his death, thought that Janus was an actual extraterrestrial. So that's a weird story that I found.
That's fascinating. And I believe from our last conversation, you were saying that now King Charles, I think since our last chat, was involved, shall we say, in the phenomena as well.
Yeah, we found out quite a lot about. He was Prince Charles at the time, and this was in Nova Scotia in 1976. Prince Charles was a helicopter pilot at the time on HMS Hermes, I think it was. I keep getting this aircraft carrier wrong, but yeah, HMS Hermes nearby. And basically, after one of my previous films, this chap called Dan Costello came forward and said, "Oh, I've got some information about Prince Charles and UFOs." I thought, okay, this sounds cool. And so I interviewed him. And you see his interview in the film, which is only about 10 minutes. But I actually interviewed him for about 10 hours, about 4 or 5 times. There's a lot of detail that he gave because the story sounds way out there. And I know that when it's in the film, but I had to include it because he gave so much detail. So a few people came forward to verify certain things. And so, we leave it to the viewer. But basically, he said that Charles is one of 3 pilots at this place called Sandy Point in Nova Scotia. And they were piloting some weird UFO type craft. I mean, I don't think it was extraterrestrial, but it had a weird propulsion. It had like dual rotor blades, like a helicopter, but then also had another means of propulsion, which emitted a blue ionic flame from the rear. And the blades would just stop and it would just hover. And it would be electromagnetic hum that Costello told us about. And also when this craft flew, it scorched the earth, turned the soil to glass, which obviously very extreme temperatures. And there's some weirdness to it. And there's also the direction was controlled by another massive craft in front of it, which is like a really, really big helicopter with a magnet in or something. And it sounds bizarre, but it's like there were these facilities in Nova Scotia at the time. And it was used by the British Navy and it was a fallback for, if we lost the Second World War, basically. So lots of military supplies and munitions were stored here under the water, actually. And it said this craft was actually submersible as well, which kind of triggered my interest when he said it was submersible, because nearby in Nova Scotia, there's just the famous Shag Harbour UFO incident.
Yeah.
I think that was late 60s. I can't remember the exact, but that was in that area. And I was like, well, maybe they're linked. I mean, who knows? Because there was this underwater test bed facility that Costello told us about, and the big caissons are still there. Basically, he was hired as a diver, child diver, to go into these caissons to recover stuff, basically. Uh, so yeah, it's a fascinating story, and putting Charles in a UFO, it's like whoa. And apparently they were taking this craft to the NASA base at Langley, where it was never seen again. Or was it?
Wow.
That's Jimmy. I've got to butt in. When we interviewed Jeff Nuscatelli, his
Yes.
grandma at the beach saw a UAP, which arguably may or may not have come out of the sea, and it turned the sand to glass.
Oh
And
wow.
that's I can't remember where he said that was, but he's Canadian.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I'll have to look back. He did, didn't he? I was when you were saying that, Mark, I was thinking I was trying to think who have we spoke. We've spoken to someone, Jeff. Yeah, absolutely. And but there's a few of those links, isn't there, of the kind of glass type
Mhm,
objects where
mhm,
it's turned sand or whatever into
mhm, mhm.
glass because of heat or whatever. We're making some assumptions, but there's links everywhere, isn't there? When we look at these cases, there's
Yeah.
just you go that's linked to that and that's linked to that. It's because it's the same thing. It's
Yeah, yeah. They're all
UFOs, they're out there.
there. Well, and this, the reason why I wanted to include it in the film is like, some of it was verifiable, and I've got 10 hours of Costello talking, and he's always been consistent in what happened. But the other thing is like, UAPs, UFOs, people think, oh, extraterrestrials, and not necessarily. And this obviously wasn't, but it was some weird technology. But where did the technology come from? I
Yeah.
mean, Dan Costello suggested, Nikola Tesla had some facilities in that area, and he was using them to test his stuff, but who knows? And there's the whole mystery regarding what happened to Tesla's secrets after his death, and the Donald Trump connection. I don't know if you're aware of.
Absolutely. Yeah, was it Donald Trump's uncle for the
Yeah,
for the CIA that
John G. Trump.
allegedly went in there and sort of scarpered off with all the blueprints and plans and gear. So that's very topical at the moment, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. I thought that fascinating. It was like, maybe there's nothing to it, but it's such a great story. It's like, but yeah, so Tesla was ahead of his day. He was a complete genius. He was, like an Einstein, really. He was, things he was inventing in his mind, like wireless technology, which we've got now, but this is over 100 years ago. So yeah.
Yeah. And the royal family, like their ability to look into this stuff back in those days is probably quite different from nowadays, I would imagine, because it's like nowadays
Mm,
it's a lot it appears a lot more ceremonial, whereas I think, go back however many decades, they were
mm.
essentially making decisions, like really making decisions, whereas now it's, as I say, it's sort of sign that paper, royal assent sort of stuff.
Yeah,
So they
I
would
do.
have had they would have
Mm,
had the ability,
mm,
in my imagination,
mm.
I would suspect that they would have had that ability to get stuck in and just go, look, I'm in, like, Her Majesty the Queen, I'm interested in crop circles. Go out there and find out. Get the head of the MI5 to come and tell me what's going.
Yeah, I mean, this is it. I'm really hoping that King Charles is going to use his passion and interest in it to do something constructive, because we don't have a disclosure movement in the UK, do we? I was talking with someone yesterday, and it's like, this is what we need in this country. We need to take it a bit more seriously. The royal family took it seriously,
Yeah.
so why can't, the BBC, for instance? I've got my new film out. It's getting press everywhere. I can't get an interview on the BBC because they won't talk about UAPs. It's just nonsense, for them. So
Well,
it's
I
like,
think I completely agree, and I think that's part of the issue. And it's people like yourself that are going to push this forward. And it's the same with a lot of people said in America with James Fox's movie,
yeah,
the
yeah, yeah,
Phenomenon.
the phenomenon.
Yeah, the Phenomenon, that was their kind of awakening. That was their key moment of, oh, okay, we need to. This is really interesting. I think we can't underestimate how powerful something like that is, how powerful not just one article, just one film,
Mm,
and put all of this together, the trajectory that we're on now, especially with the hearings. I know that a Senate
mm,
hearing was also announced for November, so we've got a congressional hearing, and then there's like a Senate hearing as well a week or so later,
yeah,
or
so
just under a week later. So I'm hopeful. We did get a bit of press when we had the last congressional hearings. I'm hopeful that we get a bit more in the UK,
yeah,
but we just
because
got to keep pushing.
we have, yeah, but we need kind of mainstream scientists and politicians to talk about it, really, because that's what you got in America. You've got, I speak quite a lot to Professor Harvey Loeb, He's brilliant. Love the guy. He's a proper scientist from Harvard, on the top of, in his field, and he's taking it very, very seriously. And that's what we need over here, and politicians as well to take it seriously, because there is something there. It's we don't know what it is. It is of significance because we don't know what it is. It's in our airspace and it should be investigated. And if there is a cover up, which I think there possibly is, then the public's got a right to know, because if there is this fantastic technology that could traverse great distances at very small speeds and very little energy, or using no energy, then that could be used for the benefit of mankind and not just for the secret military contractors that want to make money out of it, which I guess always follow the money. An old adage that served me well, but there you go.
That's a really good point when you consider something like the Condign report, where you've got the Ministry of Defence saying, for example, at Rendlesham, which we'll hopefully get onto, that nothing happened of national security importance, so there's nothing worth investigating. And then the Condign report comes out, and they were talking about UAP 20 plus years ago, and talking about plasmas in the ionosphere and all this kind of stuff, which is just creeping out now, and we think is kind of cutting edge. So there's clearly a discrepancy between what they're doing and what they're saying. But did you want to mention Rendlesham and the new project?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, this also came from John Hanson, the retired CID police officer in Stratford-upon-Avon, because he actually wrote a couple of books with Charles Holtz, who was the the colonel in charge of the base, deputy colonel in charge of the RAF Bentwaters in 1980, when over the Christmas weekend they saw lights in the forest, went to investigate. Allegedly, a craft landed, and whatever happened next is open to different people's experiences. But something happened, that's for sure. And Charles Holt is still convinced. I mean, I've spoken to him recently, and he's a dead honest guy. He's got no reason to make things up. And people suggested various skeptics said, oh, it was the lighthouse, but it wasn't the lighthouse. The lighthouse was too faint, it was too far away. There's something weird that's happened that weekend. But the reason why I want to make this film is that people have been back since and seen stuff and had weird experiences, not related to the 1981. John Hanson himself, this police officer, very down to earth, brummy, no nonsense guy. He's gone down there, and he sent me a video of what he saw, and there's some sort of unknown craft that he videoed. It's like it's on an old VHS recording, but it's like, well, there's something weird, can't be explained. And he told me about when he was at the forest, they were doing like what you would call now a CE5 meditation thing that Dr. Stephen Greer does, but they were just got together and just kind of chilled and just sat there and tried to, if there's anything there, to ask it to appear. And he claims that, basically rocks fell out of the sky, stones, okay, and they were warm to the touch, so they just dropped out of the sky. And it's like really weird. And he collected these and he took them off for analysis. And the scientists said it's as if these rocks have just been formed.
Wow.
It's like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. That got me thinking. It's like, I need to make a film about this. And so I've interviewed him about that. And then there's another ufologist and author, I don't know if you know, it's called Philip Kinsella. And he claims to have gone down with Brenda Butler, who was one of the original investigators of Rendlesham in 1980. And they claim to have manifested a pyramid-shaped UFO. They didn't take any cameras or film because they didn't want to spoil what they were doing. But, he's given testimony to say, this is what happened. And there's like 4 of them verifying it. So that got me thinking that, well, maybe there's something strange about that location. And so we went down to investigate with cameras and various equipment, Geiger counter and things like that. And we got evidence of stuff, just weird stuff we can't explain. And it's all going to be in the film, but it was just what happened to us. I mean, we went down with the intention of trying to see 5, like we did in UFO Encounters of the Fifth Kind, to do that. That was our intention. We didn't manifest a UFO, though we did see some orbs in the forest later, but we did have a paranormal experience, which we weren't expecting. And that was just like, there was really strange, weird electronic sounds in the woods. I mean, the woods were empty. There was no one there. There's nothing nearby. And these sounds were bouncing around the woods, and they were like beckoning us in. So we went chasing them, these sounds, trying to find where they were coming from. I mean, we had the cameras on. We need to find it. Trying not to kill ourselves and tripping over old logs and stuff. But yeah, we never found it. Every time we got near it, we'd just go to the other side of the woods. It was just really, really weird. And then we heard strange howling, which is like, what the hell is this? It's like some sort of cryptid thing. I mean,
That's fascinating.
Yeah, it was not what we were expecting. So
no, but that ties in. That ties in with the Rendlesham, the original encounter, doesn't it? Because I think on if I'm right, and I may well be wrong, on Christmas Day they heard strange noises and lights in the forest, and then it was the 26th when Holt went out to investigate, and he was saying that there was loads of really strange sounds coming from the woods, and then there was like red and stuff flashing lights as well, and I think it was Burroughs that said the color of what they could see reminded him of a crashed burning plane. So there was lots of weird sounds and stuff then. So it's almost like,
yeah, that's a good connection. Yeah, absolutely. It wasn't a weird electronic sound, and we took EMF reader, and that was going crazy. I mean, we had obviously had a base reading, which was just nothing there, but then it would just spike out of nowhere, and we kind of, I don't want to start turning into Yvette Fielding. We started asking questions, and the thing that spiked was like, what's going on? And then it was bizarre. And then we had I don't know what you think, but we had dowsing rods because we're trying to find the right place to do the CE5. And the dowsing rods, I've never seen, they were just going mental, seriously, just spinning around. And one of my friends who came she's a bit of a skeptic, and she had them as well, and they were just going round and round and round. It was like, what is going on? It was just a weird. I mean, I wasn't scared, but Guy Thompson, my partner in this film, he was seriously scared. He was freaked out by it, and yeah, and they couldn't wait to get out of it. I mean, to the end, I was freaking out because everyone else was freaked out. So they were.
Was Guy the chap that his car broke down when
you
were doing
that's right. Yeah. So yeah, we actually made this one, which is good.
How strange! How strange! But everything is strange. I mean, everything in this subject is so weird and strange and wonderful.
Yeah,
but it's just, you got to follow it, haven't you? You got to follow it.
Yeah, and there's just weird synchronicities happening as well, which is. But the exciting thing about the film is that we obviously it's made now, but we got the narration done by because we're saying, oh, it's a bit like an X-Files episode, this, but real. Anyway, we got William B. Davis, who was the cigarette smoking man from X-Files.
Wow.
To do the narration.
That's cool. That's cool.
It's a bit of an because he's in Canada and it's like trying to sort it out. This would be maybe to make this happen. Messi made it happen. It's like, wow. So yeah, it's very excited about that. So I'll send you a sneak preview once it's edited.
Awesome, that'd be great. Well, so Tom and I have been talking about going out to Rendlesham and trying to film something and a bit of an expedition, but we just not got around to it yet. We've got to do it.
Let me know because it's a really cool. There's lots of people go out there now. That's the thing, and they claim to have weird experiences as well. So it's just an awesome place. At the end of the day, it's remote and it's just it's awe-inspiring being there. Just the vastness of the woodland and it's amazing.
Do you know where the actual site is? I mean, because I've not been down there, I don't really. Is it laid out like we've got from the witnesses, like the exact location where?
Well, there's a trail which you follow, which follows the events of that weekend, and along the trail there is a model of the craft that Penistone and Burroughs allegedly saw, but it's not where it landed.
Right.
I've been told by various people. We were told a location by Holt and by John Hanson, which wasn't far away, and that's where we we did the CE5. I mean, obviously, I took a metal detector as well, just in case there's fragments of the spacecraft or something. I didn't find anything. I found a bit of old iron, which is quite deep. It's probably hundreds of years old, but probably not part of the ship. Wouldn't be very aerodynamic, but yeah.
Who knows? I mean, it could be. Weirder
Well,
things
I've
have
still got
happened.
it. I do quite a lot of metal detecting, so it's quite deep. So it's obviously really old. But then, John Hanson was telling me there's lots of kind of ancient Anglo-Saxon burial mounds in there, because Sutton Hoo's not far away as well. So you got all that added to the mix. So maybe there's something weird there, where there's weird energies, earth energies. Maybe that's
Yeah.
part of it, part of the mystery.
Did you get the opportunity to cover? I don't know if you necessarily wanted to or not, but did you get the opportunity to cover the payout? That I know that John Burroughs got a payout, didn't he?
Well, yeah, we
the
did talk about
harm.
that. Yeah,
Oh,
because people are questioning, the validity of their stories. But yeah, I think all of them are medically retired. They had to be medically retired. Even Holt's been medically retired. And yeah, and they've had payouts. What did they pay out for?
yeah.
Suffered some harm at that at that base, probably from that weekend. They're not denying it happened, but it's the same with people who have these injuries and there's government bodies involved. It's very difficult for them to accept liability. They might pay you off, but they're not going to say, "Oh, it's our fault," and because of this. So, but yeah, it does add credence to the testimonies. Although it is a bit weird how the stories all vary, because I find it hard to get my head around the whole binary code. I love the story; it's great. With Jim Penniston, goes up to the craft and touches it and gets some sort of download, but then he doesn't tell anyone about it till, was it 20 years later? I don't know how many years later. It was a long time later, and then it's coded in his book, and he gets it decoded, and it's got some weird message about hi Brazil and I don't know, saving the planet, the usual message. I find that a bit hard to believe, but I want to believe, but because it's a fantastic story. What do you guys think?
Over to you, Tom.
Oh God. Well, it's a hot topic for me, mate. I'm not gonna lie. I've been looking into it very gingerly for the last week or so. I met Larry Warren at an event in Madrid, the Contact
Yeah.
UFO Congress, and that sort of sparked me off because it's always been one that I've put on a shelf because it's so nebulous with
Yeah.
all of these spectacular events allegedly happening over. I mean, some people say 13 days, some people say 4 days. So I never really knew where to draw the line of where I'd say, okay, that's believable. But then John Burroughs is probably the first man in history to be burned by a lighthouse, if nothing happened, if Wikipedia is to be believed. And then you've got things like the Halt memo. And I know people have their differences with Larry Warren's account because it's the least sort of backed up by everybody else. But he's the guy that leaked the Halt memo. So it's sort of every time you start to pull a thread out, it's tied back in there somewhere. So honestly, I don't know what to believe at the moment, but it's a real Scooby-Doo mystery.
It is, because Larry Warren's story is quite fascinating. I know a lot of people dispute what he says, but he claims to been given sodium pentothal and things like that to get the truth out of him, or so.
Yeah,
which I find quite believable, to be honest, because I'm sure they would have done that back then. So yeah, I find him quite interesting, Larry Warren. I know people don't believe what he says, but I don't know. I'd like to meet him anyway one day.
He's in the UK, isn't he?
Is he?
Yeah, I believe so.
he is indeed. He lives in Liverpool, which was quite a surprise because I'm only about 30 miles away from there. But he's a very interesting guy. I was fortunately I was at an event in Spain, so there wasn't that many people that were naturally English speaking. So we sort of naturally ended up hanging out quite a lot, and Yeah, he's had a lot of flack, and he sort of deflects that a little bit by leaning into it a little bit, So he'll say sort of, "Oh, you can't believe a word I say," if you go on the internet, stuff like that. Um, but he's so passionate that I think sometimes he gets, and this isn't to his detriment. He's so passionate about getting the account out there that I think he doesn't always give it sort of a measured, data-driven
Yeah,
approach,
yeah,
which then the internet and his critics sort of take advantage of, and it makes it a little trickier to put a
yeah,
line under him.
absolutely. I find it similar with Dan Costello, the Nova Scotia guy. It's similar, I think. But then Dan did provide 10 hours of data, which is like a meticulous detail. But yeah, I was like, whoa, okay. But yeah, just going back to Dan Costello, it's like I've had people come forward since the film's been made, so I can't do anything about it. They've verified his story and said, yeah, I remember seeing Charles there in 1976. So I'm quite pleased that I left it in because I was a bit worried about the flack we'd get. And people have, the Daily Star had a front page about it. They're quite jokingly, King and UFO kind of thing. Batshit TV program or something. I was like, oh, okay. I was expecting it, but it's like, but yeah, that's the thing with these things with the UAPs, because you want to kind of push the boundaries and ask the questions, but you put yourself out for ridicule a little bit as well, which I'm old enough to take. So.
I think Mark, we need to work on it. Like we need some sort of a plan of action for the UK because I had this conversation with the director yesterday, British actually, I think originally from the UK, but he had a completely different take. Like, we wanted to put this documentary together and we phoned up all of these really credible people, these politicians, senators and Congress people, and said, we're making this documentary and it's going to be about UFOs. And go back 5 years, they would have laughed at us. And now they're like, yeah, no problem at all. Like, why haven't we got this in the UK?
I know.
We're so closely connected to the States and we share media. We get a lot of American politics over here and they get some of ours. I don't know. I think we need to put some plan together, Mark. I think.
Yeah.
The three of us, let's do it.
I'm up for it. Let's do it. Yeah, we need to do it. I was actually, so I keep name dropping, don't I? It's my musical days. I always name drop when I was doing music. Me and Jarvis Cocker did this all that. I talked to George Knapp the other day, and he was saying about Robbie Williams is massively into UFOs. So I put a feeler out to, because we get some sort of mainstream celebrity on board with a disclosure. That was my proposal to George Knapp. That would help us give us a bit of credibility. And then finding a politician. I mean, I don't know, who that would be, a credible politician.
That's the problem. I think there's probably plenty of them that believe or have had an experience, but it's that are prepared to talk about it because we've still got much more stigma in the UK, I think, than in the States. So it's certainly more reserved anyway.
I mean, we had a few back in the 70s and 80s, some old Tory MPs that would bring it up in House of Commons now and again, and it's on the parliamentary record. Yeah, there's no one recently, I don't think.
Was it Lord Norton?
Lord Hill Norton, yeah.
Hill Norton. Yeah. He was really banging the drum, particularly about Rendlesham, because it's a thinly veiled secret that it was a nuclear storage facility there, and he was saying, either these people are hallucinating, which is terrifying, or something happened, which is worthy of investigation. So
there's some serious stuff there, that he's looking after. No, Lord Hill Norton. But then he kind of, towards the end of his career, he kind of said, no, there's nothing to it. It kind of went the other way because he did a report, and he was being influenced by Reverend Paul Inglesby. I don't know if you heard of him, but he was a kind of charismatic evangelical Christian in the UK. And he was telling Lord Hill Norton, oh yeah, UFOs are all demons. A bit like what's happening in America a little bit with the evangelicals there. So Hill Norton was convinced that we're demons, so he just wanted to leave them alone. It's quite sad. So he did this report saying, yeah, don't touch them. They're evil. They're demonic. So, and Nick Pope says maybe there's still a faction Probably not now, but in the House of Commons, it still. But then there's not many old Tories left now, so it's probably not. So, there you go. But yeah, we need some credible politicians. I mean, I don't know how we go about doing it, but we should do something and put a team together and go down to Downing Street and, get some serious scientists on board. I've got a BSc in environmental studies, so gives me some minor credibility from the Polytechnic. So, sorry,
I'm up for it. I'm up for it. Even if we project a UFO on the side of Big Ben, we'll do some guerrilla journalism. Yeah,
that would be good. Yeah.
Let's do it. We're good at promoting stuff and playing with things and getting some interest. Yeah, let's do it. We come up with something.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Three unique minds.
Yeah, it's a team. Let's start.
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's go down to London to Green Park or St James's Park near the Palace. We should do a CE5, and film it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Why not?
I'm up for it.
Palace, that'd be good.
Yeah, let's do it.
100%. Yeah, they want it over the White House. We'll see if we can get it to land on Buckingham Palace lawn.
I'll let you guys go anyway.
Awesome.
Thank you very
Nice
much.
one. Thanks,
Great to speak to you again, mate. See you soon.
Man. Take
Tom.
care.
Thanks, Jimmy.
Bye. Cheers. Bye now.
Bye.